Writer, director F.C. Rabath brings us The Final Pact. And this is a 2024 kind of exorcism film. The movie focuses on three trainee priests, and they have come to the end of their training to be a priest, and all that remains is one final test before they are ordained. But they don't really know the form of this test. And to celebrate, these three go out to a restaurant to go and have a meal and celebrate. And along the way, they encounter a woman who has seemingly broken down, and they go out and help. And this woman asks them to help her daughter, who is at home and possibly possessed. Now, one of the priests is kind of reluctant to, because they haven't been trained on this. They're not actually ordained at this point, and this obviously isn't something they necessarily specialise in. But the other two are clearly kind of wanting to prove themselves, if that makes sense, and decide that they are going to go and try and help this girl. But when they get there, she just seems like a somewhat kind of typical 20-year-old girl, to be honest. Now, as the movie goes on, maybe this girl is something to do with demons and hell and all that, or is it actually a test that the church have actually set up to see what happens with these kind of priests, and can they pass this unexpected set of trials, or is it something else entirely? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss. So this is very much a Machiavellian plot. There is many threads to this one, and it's kind of a original idea in many ways. I mean, I think the setup is very strong. You know, we have these trainee priests. They're not quite there yet, and one of the things I liked about them is we have three clearly different types of personalities between these priests, and we learn a little bit about their backstories and what has taken them to this point, and why they have joined the priesthood and what they want out of it. And the friendship between them seems kind of genuine, but they do seem like very different people. And I think part of the idea of this movie is almost showing the people of the cloth. You know, they are just people too, and that's kind of something that's explored relatively early on. We see a variety of interactions and how people react to these kind of priests, and from their point of view, and some are hostile, some of them just expect them to do things and stuff like that. And that's even before we get to the actual the bulk of the storyline here. And then we kind of get to this this mysterious house with this woman in it who may or may not be the devil, and a series of trials that will test them, all kind of somewhat based on like Dante's Inferno and things. So it's an interesting plot that sees our trio of priests face a variety of tests and trials, but it's not particularly graphically horror. There is some good imagery, but it's not like a scary horror film. It is much more of a thriller, psychological horror maybe, and more of a kind of a thinking man's possession movie, or a thinking man's exorcism movie. So yeah, I mean, I think that the plot is unlike any other kind of style of movie that involves exorcisms and demons and priests and all that I've really seen before, that gives it a real kind of flavour of its own. And again, I think the character work here is very good, and these priests seem very personable, although they are very well defined in their characters as well. And the movie is low budget, but nonetheless I do think there is some kind of interesting things done with the kind of iconography here, and kind of imagery. As I say, I wouldn't say this movie ever goes into kind of the scary side of stuff, but nonetheless, it certainly goes into the bizarre and maybe macabre kind of imagery here, without being overtly. It's not gory film. It's not a bloody film. It's not a jump scares film. But there's just kind of imagery and themes here that I think are kind of quite well developed. And the actual idea as the story goes on, you feel you never quite know what the actual the kind of where this plot is going. I think the movie does a good job, maybe a little too good, in burying the lead in regards to what direction this story is actually going, and what are these kind of priests actually doing, and what are they facing, and what is their kind of mindset to this kind of stuff. There are one or two instances where I do think FC Rabath has actually been quite clever in using, obviously a limited budget, but still to try and create some unsettling imagery. For example, there's a scene where there's two female characters, and they're talking to one of the priests, and one of the priests kind of calls one of them out on something, and the other one just starts to kind of like grow and like rise in the background, and you're thinking, it just doesn't come out of, it just comes out of nowhere really, and it's not expected, and you're just going to see her like go up, and it's just like, oh, that wasn't clearly what you were, it wasn't set up. It's not like it's trying to prep you for this scary moment. It just kind of happens. So I thought that was kind of quite good. And I had to say the story is intriguing. I think the acting is okay. I don't think it's brilliant acting, but it wasn't like it was fine for this movie, fine for a kind of a lower budget movie. Mixed bag overall, but generally speaking, I think it was pretty good. And yeah, a very, very intriguing plot, and really very original. So I will give props to that. What doesn't work, I think maybe this movie's a little convoluted in regards to its plot, because even when you watch the movie as a whole, I couldn't help but thinking I wasn't quite sure what was meant to have happened in some aspects. I felt I kind of, some of the minutiae of the detail was a little lost. And I think part of that is because maybe this story is told at a pace where you feel it brushes over some things, and you think that they couldn't possibly be thinking this is real, or things. Again, I don't want to spoil it for you. And I think maybe it could have been told in a slightly kind of a way which was more definitive about what it's trying to do. I think the whole point of this movie is it's trying to be somewhat kind of vague in regards to its storytelling to try and keep you guessing as an audience, but I think it never really rallies to kind of give you a definitive answer about what has actually kind of happened. And the other thing I would say that kind of goes hand in hand with that, but kind of a separate criticism on its own, is the one critique I would have with the characters here is that I feel like the reactions to kind of stuff that is weird is just way too subtle. When we get these characters start kind of really non-reacting to stuff, even if they are trainee priests, I felt that their sort of non-reaction to apparent supernatural stuff was just a little bit, it was just too underplayed. I mean, they just didn't seem to react to things. And even sometimes in more, just kind of run-of-the-mill conversations. Like, for example, when we come across this older woman on the road who's broken down, again, this is before anything supernatural has happened, and this woman asks for their help with their daughter, they assume she's talking about an exorcism, even before she has said that. I'm thinking, surely you wouldn't jump to that conclusion. Surely you would just think she's got some type of maybe mental illness or something like that, or some type of affliction. They never really kind of question it. They just assume that it's kind of a demonic possession. They go, yeah, we'll totally do it, even though, if you've watched any other kind of exorcism movies, the priest is very kind of, they don't jump into things like that very quickly, and this is priests who haven't even been ordained yet. So, again, some of those kind of the things here, I just feel aren't kind of told in a narrative that is particularly clear, or, if it's kind of, it just seems to skip over things. There are one or two occasions where I feel there are some CGI enhancements that I feel would have been better. Maybe they had just not done it. It's not much. It's nothing over too overstayed, but there's a couple of instances where the use of like CGI fire, it just didn't need to be there, to be honest, and it kind of looks like CGI fire. Things like this, I didn't think it needed to be there to kind of get across the fact that there is something, you know, going on and stuff. And maybe it could have lent into a little bit more of a scarier movie. I mean, the movie, I would say, and this is, take it as a positive or a negative, this movie is somewhat of a positive film in regards to its messaging. The messaging here is trying to be a even uplifting film to some degree. It's not trying to be a negative, scary movie that's, you know, that's gonna put you in a slump and stuff. The idea here is, I think the movie is trying to keep, you know, have a spread a message of positivity, but through a horror film. And that's commendable, but maybe it could have meant that the movie lacks a little bit of that kind of bite to a certain degree. Overall, though, I think it's a wonderfully original idea, told in a way that's intriguing, but maybe has missed a few kind of like beats to make it more accessible, and, you know, things like that. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10 because I do feel it's a breath of fresh air in an overcrowded market in regards to sort of demonic possession movies, but it's not a it's not all a winner. So 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? Would you see it based on what I've told you? Please do let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.